I don't like them putting chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' frogs gay. Serious crap.
Hey, welcome back to the Dark Horde. This is Manny, your host, and I've been on a bit of a hiatus, if I could say it that way, because we went from doing doing the Dark Horde every 2 weeks, and then I was like, oh, fuck it, maybe it should be like once a month. It's really hard when it's not the season to be spooky to get like stories like these, and it's weird because people are ghost hunting year round. I just can't seem to get a good connect into the folks that are out there hunting ghosts. It's like they don't want to be on a podcast. I don't know. Maybe it gives them a bad rep with the undead, with the folks on the other side of the veil. Maybe that's why I can't get ghost hunters on the podcast. It is such a strange situation for me. Like, you would think if you're out there hunting ghosts, you ought to pat yourself on the back or pat yourself on your your ghost pack or whatever, and be like, hey, this is me, I'm out here, I'm doing it. Check out my stories. It doesn't seem to work that way. I got to work on that, because I want to at least go back to twice a month for the Dark Horde. But the reason I'm having this episode, one, because I forgot last week. And no, actually, what? Wait, I wasn't even around last week. I was in North Dakota. Scary place, North Dakota. No, it's not. No, I did see some houses up there that... and some neighborhoods right next to the Capitol, right there in Bismarck, where, for fuck's sake, you would find a really nice-looking house, beautiful house, right? Not really big, not particularly huge, but, over there they have basements, not like in Texas. So, your house could really go a few levels down and be a mansion, I guess. But they're like everything, like 1, 2, 3 houses, fourth house, there is no way that anything living lives in that fucking house. I'll be honest. You felt some bad presences in there. Like something was out to get you out in Bismarck. I'll be honest. That's what I felt. And it's a really strange thing. And it's right down from the Capitol. So I'm thinking that maybe you can't tear them bitches down. Maybe they're like historical, right? Maybe that's where some dude killed like the first buffalo. And so they're keeping the thing together. Heck, who knows? But other than that, North Dakota was great. It was fantastic. It was cold as hell as night, but otherwise, it's good. It was like almost 90 over here in Texas all of a sudden. Like we went through Wintergate, or what was it? Snowvids was another one. Snowmageddon. Like maybe 2 weeks ago, and now all of a sudden we're in the 90s. Like people are actually launching fireworks right now. The fuck is going on? Really? It's strange. 2021 has been completely bananas. It really has. Well, anyway, I decided to put this episode together only because I will be heading down to Galveston next weekend to have a spooktacular type of time down there. I was there last year and took a ghost tour. And really, the ghost tour was around the one storm. I feel like Galveston has all these ghost stories because of one storm. Like, there were so many people that died in the area, and still in 2021, the ghosts are still there just fucking around and waiting for you to go down and show you a good time. So I will oblige. I'm going to go down there again this year. A different spot, a very swanky little place called Hotel Galvez. Actually, if you look at the image of this particular episode, you will see part of the front of that hotel. I mean, it is fancy as hell. I feel like I need to dress up just to go in there. I don't know. I don't think I can do that. I gotta be myself, right? Gotta be myself. But shit, I might be out of place. The ballrooms in that place are amazing. I'm sure the shitters are fantastic. You know, probably not what's up there in the space station right now, $1 billion shitter with gold on it, but I'm sure it's pretty damn cool. Pretty damn cool, that those shitters over there. And even one of the shitters is haunted. So, just so you know, they are not underachievers in this department. They even got haunted shitters. So, come on. It is a place to go. Let's be honest about it. We're going to take a trip back to that storm that started everything. And then we're going to talk about basically an orphanage situation there that was pretty sad. But I got to say this. Then we're going to go to the Hotel Galvez. Hotel Galvez has a list of his own haunted happenings. And we're going to see. We're going to see exactly what's going to go down. Because I feel like I'm not ever going to experience a cool haunting or ghost. I'm not. It's not going to be like Casper and shit, right? Where you go in, you like maybe give them a padow, you dab them up or something, and you're cool and you just leave. No, I feel like when I get my ghost experience, it's going to be like The Exorcist, like, those stuff you see on TV where the pantries all open up and all the dishes come flying out. That's what I feel it's going to be like. That's going to be my time. Hopefully not in the shitter in the Hotel Galvez, because the only thing that's going to come up is not going to smell so nice. So, as usual, I haven't forgotten, I like to play a little bit of tracks on here, just like I do on the Tempest Universe. So I'm going to hit up this first song, and then we're going to go right into the storm. And there is a fascinating story behind why Galveston was caught completely off guard, and why that storm was so devastating. I'll be back after this track.
I've been wasting my time. I don't know why I can't get you out my mind. And if I find a way to get it, when I do it, I can live it and forget it. Cause I hate how much I love you, or I hate how you just put me in my feelings. I just wish you understood the gravity, but you got low sinners. I guess it's better just to live it and forget it than to live it and remember. I've been wasting my time. I don't know why I can't get you out my mind. Yeah, now I'm so lost, where do I go? I was in a chase, caught a flat on road. It was all love, X no O. I was feeling rich, but we turned out broke. North Pole, life so cold. Lukewarm love, should've took it to the stove. You were bad news, all kind, no pro. We grew apart fast. I guess we was reaping what we sowed in. I guess we was unequally yoked in. Guess if we was putting on the shoulder. Guess we should've tried to take it slow then. Guess I let my feelings take control. Guess I let my demon take the wheel. Used to think that we be growing older. Now I can't believe that it was real. It was back in late December when I did it. I just wish I could forget it. Cause I hate how much I love it, or I hate how I just love to catch a feeling. Told me that you understood depravity, but now I know you didn't. I guess it's better just to live it and forget it than to live it and remember. If I find a way to get it, when I do it, I can live it and forget it. Cause I hate how much I love you, or I hate how you just put me in my feelings. I just wish you understood the gravity, but you got lost sinners.
Dead man walking.
I got a question right now from the live chat. By the way, we got Pucky and Green Man are in there right now. Am I taking any ghost hunting? Oh, and Bugs is here behind me. Man. am I taking any ghost hunting equipment? And the answer is, I'm only taking my cat-like reflexes and my super senses in order to hunt down the ghost. That is what I'm relying on, and it's my special innate abilities. No, I'm going to take some cameras. Got a couple of cameras. I just have a strange feeling that hanging around the shitter with GoPros is probably not going to be accepted very well, especially if it's like at 1, 2 in the morning or 3 o'clock in the morning, because I think a lot of people in the security realm of things are going to like that, but it's the chance I have to take. The first one for tonight is the hurricane. The hurricane of 1900. It became one of the deadliest U.S. natural disasters of its time. Completely nuts. Now, I really had no idea that that people actually had the skills to watch for these storms back in 1900, but apparently they were. They had folks who are meteorologists who actually were able to track storms all the way out from the Pacific. I'm sorry, not the Pacific, the Atlantic, up and through the Gulf of Mexico. It's like people had. Why we need planes now? This is what I'm trying to say. Why we need planes and satellite? If they could do it back then, what's the problem now? Why are we so high tech and still not really getting anywhere? It's a strange thing. The 1900 hurricane was actually a Category 4 hurricane that destroyed 3,600 buildings. The winds surpassed 135 miles an hour. And, it was the 1900s. We didn't have that kind of technology that we do now in constructing buildings. Between 6,000 and 12,000 people perished just in the area between Galveston and Houston. Believe it or not. It was tragic. There was a situation at the time between the folks here that were tracking the meteorologists in the United States and those in Cuba, believe it or not. I was kind of surprised about this. September 1900 is when all this went down. And apparently the Cubans were really good at predicting where hurricanes would land in the United States. There was a particular path they would take, which was north of Cuba, and the Cubans were like, "Hey, what's up, man? This hurricane's coming right to you." So if it went towards the north, past the north of Cuba, they pretty much predicted that it would hit landfall somewhere in the Gulf of Mexico. There was something going on with the Weather Bureau in Washington at the time. They had issues with Cuba. This shit's going back to the 1900s, folks. Just so that you know. The director of the Weather Bureau, Willis Moore, was apparently really jealous of the Cubans and their weather predicting ability. I mean, God, for fuck's sake. They're looking out for you, right? The fucking storm's coming your way. They figured out the path that they normally take, and they say, "Hey, it's coming your way. Would you like a QE cigar?" We throw it up. That's an inside joke. But they were actually, they were having problems. And, the articles that I read said that there was a thing of jealousy from them. And so what they did was that they cut the data from Cuba. Freaking assholes. They cut the data. And shortly after that, 1900, the storm of 1900 just came through. No one really had an idea except for one guy who was the Weather Bureau's chief in Galveston. He was an observer. He's watching the weather. And he decided that he'd keep an eye on this pressure system that was coming across. Well, he actually went ahead and, according to the story, suspected that Washington's forecast was not correct. That it was actually going to hit landfall in that Galveston, Houston area, and they had it incorrect. Why? Because they were not taking the data from Cuba. They weren't taking that into consideration. Well, the hurricane hit. You lost so many lives because Klein was not able to get to the city in time to warn them that this Category 4 was coming through. And so the city wasn't prepared for it. That's why so many people died. It got so bad that wherever they found bodies, that's where they buried them. And actually, when I took that tour last year, they had pictures that people were taking back in the day down by some of the ports. And the craziest thing, there was apparently at one point they had so many bodies. They were like all over the island of Galveston that they eventually decided, well, let's take them all on boats and just drop them off in the ocean. Because who the heck was left around to bury all these bodies? Most of the people died. And then, all kinds of diseases started setting in with everything being so wet, and you have mosquitoes going nuts. You have all these bodies deteriorating all over the place. It's not a great smelling place. So at one point, somebody had a great idea to dump these all in the ocean, and I don't understand why any of the captains, they didn't speak up because the bodies all came back again. True story. Hashtag it. 1900s. No fucks are given. But eventually they got it all cleaned up. But if you go down to Galveston, I forget the name of the road, but it's by one of the ports, and it's a popular spot now, right? But there are so many haunted stories from that area, and there is a place where a lot of the bodies were stacked up, and they actually have pictures of it that you can, if you go with a ghost tour, they'll actually show you the pictures. And some of these areas haven't changed. They look the same. So these buildings were built so ornate and so strong and sturdy that a lot of the buildings that suffered through that hurricane are still there. They're landmarks now, but it's amazing. Completely amazing. Some of them had to be gutted on the inside, but that stonework outside that's holding up the frame was just magnificent and survived that storm. And we're talking about waters that were over the first floor. Basically, you could look out a second floor window and just dive into the ocean that was going by. That's how high the water rose. So to say that Galveston is haunted, oh my God, it's a damn understatement. It really is. It's an understatement. Now, I've stayed in Galveston before, but not in any place that has been labeled as haunted. I could just imagine, man. I just don't know. Like, I could visit places that have hauntings and, take pictures, maybe record some shit, see what happens. But to actually stay overnight, and there's a lot of places in Texas that are haunted that let you just stay overnight, and investigate. But geez, that's got to be some hard work. Hey, but me, at this point in my life, I would fucking fall asleep anyway, to be honest. I'd be dead in the water. I'd be counting sheep while getting probed by some disembodied spirit, to be honest. That's just the way it is. So that is the issue. That is what's given the undead places to anchor their souls to in Galveston. It all started with this hurricane that, unfortunately for the people in the area, their government decided that they didn't want good data. They just said to hell with it. One of the saddest stories out of Galveston is the Sisters of Charity orphanage. That's coming up next after this track.
Sacrifice.
This story is about to get, I don't know, kind of sad, right? Like every time that I do a story, like, when you do UFOs and aliens, you don't do stories about kids. But a lot of times you do stories about kids when it comes to paranormal. This story is just like, geez, it's sad. It really is. It's hard to do stories where kids end up, passing away. Or how they say in the hospitals, kids expiring. Like they treat bodies in hospitals like it's milk. That's bad milk. Gotta throw it out. So this is what this next part is. I remember the first time I heard somebody in the hospital say that a patient was expired. I was so fucking confused. This story right now is also a byproduct of that storm of 1900. September 8th, as a matter of fact, is when this hurricane devastated the area of South Texas. Specifically, the Sisters of Charity Orphanage. Now, they were part of St. Mary's Infirmary in Galveston, and that actually was the very first hospital, Catholic hospital in the state of Texas. It was established in 1867. Like, folks, we're going back. We're going back in time, like Back to the Future, I guess. I don't know. The Sisters of Charity opened the orphanage within the hospital, but later on they decided, geez, we can't have all these little kids with all these sick people, so let's move it about 3 miles west to the beachfront. Because kids need that beach water life. They need that sand and you run through their little toes. That estate was actually part of the estate of Captain Farnifalia Green. Say that 3 times. Galveston at the time was one of those places where a lot of rich people went to because of the port. It was a very, very busy port. And there's a lot of stories there, too, regarding pirates that made a life down there in the port way back when because it was so busy and popular. The morning of September 8th, 1900, the winds began blowing. Strong winds. Tides was coming in. The waters in the Gulf started to rise, and it wasn't looking good. Sister Elizabeth Ryan, which is one of the 10 sisters from St. Mary's Orphanage, she came into town that morning to pick up some food. Mother Gabrielle, she must have been like Italian, I guess. She was the assistant superior to St. Mary's Infirmary, and she pleaded, she begged with Sister Ryan not to leave, to stay at the hospital. But she said, no, gotta get back to the kiddos, got to get back to the kitties. She needed to go back to the orphanage. She wasn't going to stay and leave those kids alone with the other 9 nuns because, they're no good nicks. She wasn't going to leave them alone. She needed to go back, even though it was getting stormy. The storm was brewing, as they say. But when she got there, shortly after, the storm was building up at a magnificent pace. So much so that the sisters had to get all the boys from the boys' wing, because there were 2 separate wings, one for the girls, one for the boys. The boys' wing was trashy and run down. It wasn't as sturdy as the girls because the girls was a new addition. But they decided to get all the boys out and put them all together with the other children, with the girls, and all the nuns head into that wing. Shortly after that, the boys' wing was completely taken away by the waters that were coming in from the Gulf of Mexico, stripped from the building. pretty sad. There was at one point where one of the boys at the orphanage described the sand dunes being eroded by the tides as though they were made of flour. Shortly after that, the boys' section, the wing of the orphanage, was taken away. There were 10 sisters, and they were trying to figure out a way to keep things together. Some of them were actually pulling survivors into the second floor of the orphanage into the building as they floated by. The town was just not prepared for this at all. And now you have an orphanage with stragglers, people that were rescued by these 10 nuns, and 90 boys and girls. So the sisters got a great idea. They said, let's tie some of the children to us. Let's tie them all together so that we can save them. That way they're not taken away by the water, by the tide that was coming in, by the wind. Let's do this. Let's put them all together. Each sister tied about 6 to 8 children to themselves. Eventually, the girls' wing they were in actually they collapsed, and some of the people that were in it were trapped under the roof in the water. 3 boys from the orphanage actually survived. Only 3. William Murney, Frank Madera, and Albert Campbell. The 3 boys actually ended up together in a tree that was in the water. The tree itself was floating in the water, and these kids were floating on the tree for over a day before someone actually found them. One of the boys remembered that one of his sisters was holding tightly to 2 small children in her arms, and she promised that she would never let go of them. That sister was actually found on the other side of the island with the 2 children. In 1994, on September the 8th, a marker was placed down at 69th Street and Seawall Boulevard, marking the site of the former orphanage, and that if you ever go down there, you need to go to Walmart. Guess what? You're right on the spot. There's a Walmart down there that's on the location of the orphanage. And for years, employees at the Walmart have reported many hauntings, many disturbing things happening, but not in an evil way, but more like a child. Toys are usually found all over the store in places that they don't belong. There's been times when whole shipments of toys have disappeared and reappeared later. Employees report hearing disembodied voices and laughter, crying. And if you look on YouTube, you will find many videos of people walking through the toy section, and once in a while someone will catch a toy or 2 falling off the shelves with no one else around. It is bananas. It is so sad. Another thing that happened back in that day, which happened to these nuns, is that people that were found that were dead initially were buried wherever they were found. So there are a lot of places that ended up with a lot of bodies buried that are not marked graves. They're just bodies that were buried right after this 1900 storm. So it does explain why, people find Galveston to be so damn haunted. Because things like this went down. And this Walmart on Seawall Boulevard is an example of that. down the road is the Hotel Galvez. Now, it depends where you read it, where you look at information for the Hotel Galvez, but apparently one of the nuns, their body and their clothesline of children ended up nearby the Hotel Galvez. If you look at a map, it's not really close. It's not. But the Hotel Galvez has its own spooky story to tell. Things you are not even going to believe. But hopefully I get to find out what they are. It's really funny because, well, it's not funny, right? There's a bunch of story of children. But it is something else that when you think about someone today, strapping 8 or 9 kids to them by a clothesline, you think, what in the flying hell is going on? But it was the 1900s. What else would you have, It's just, it's a really sad story. And I could see many people just still not wanting to leave because of that tragic event. And they're stuck. They're stuck in Galveston. We're going to play one more track. And then we get to go to visit the Hotel Galvez and what it has to offer. Before I get started on this article, actually, I find sometimes I find life really comical, especially around paranormal stories, right? Because one of the guys that actually works there today at the Hotel Galvez. I'm be looking for his ass. He's been working there for decades, right? And he's had these paranormal experiences. And I'm like, this is not The Shining, dude. You can actually go up Seawall Boulevard and fucking work somewhere else. But I don't know. He's just too cool, nonchalant about it. And actually, the lady that works the phone system down there, it's like the old phone system we put the fucking jack in and shit like that. She too had a crazy paranormal experience. She's still there. I mean, literally. What are you doing? Don't you know these stuff kind of can follow you home, by the way? And I saw this on some kind of a special on, I think it was Netflix or something like that. But it was fascinating, right? Because they're telling the story. They're having these weird experiences, paranormal-like, in this hotel. There's other hotels, folks. Come on. You don't got to do it. You don't got to stay there. Anyway, the Hotel Galvez, like I said, the image that's right now, there's a current image of the Hotel Galvez for the podcast episode, but there's other images of this hotel back in the early 1900s when they were building it. Now, apparently the Hotel Galvez was built in 1911, so it missed the Galveston storm of 1900. Missed it altogether by 11 years. But still, there's issues. That's what I mean. Like, it's haunted ground. I can't even get over this. Haunted ground. I mean, there's other places. I kid you not. If you go down to Galveston, and you ask around, you could freaking ghost tour. If you got ghost tours, you're fucking haunted. Let me just put it that way. If there's ghost tours in your town, and people have found a way to make a living off of it, your town's fucking haunted. Just accept it. Galveston does. It's haunted. So anyway, there's places over there. There's like these old Victorian type houses and the Devil's Playground, or not the Devil's Playground, the Devil's Gate. There's one house that's called the Devil's Gate. It's just nuts. It's nuts. And these people love working in it. There is one particular ghost, which is known as the Ghost of Audra, a.k.a. the Lovelorn Lady. And apparently room 501 is her spot because that's where she hung herself. On the 5th floor. Now, if I get a room on the 5th floor, I'll be tickled pink. Because I might be able to see the Lovelorn Lady. Apparently, she was engaged to a mariner. This is the port area. And he went out. Said, hey, when we get back, let's tie the knot, sweetie. So he goes out, and news comes back, because she was at the hotel waiting for him. Now, mariners back in the 1900s, for fuck's sake, how long did they go away for? Because I can't imagine they have 450 horsepower marine outboards on their boats. So I would imagine they didn't it took him a long time to come back, but she was waiting for him, right? And his boat sailed out of the port of Galveston, and then 501 is where she was waiting, just, waiting for her baby to come back. Somehow, word got back to her from the port that the ship sank. Now, as you can imagine, that ripped her apart, basically. She was extremely depressed. And eventually she committed suicide in room 501. DEAD. Because her love of her life was dead. Now, depending on where you look up the story, there is a version that says that about a week later, the mariner showed up looking for Audra. He had survived the wreckage and was back in Galveston, back at the Hotel Galvez, looking for her. The story is that sometimes you can see her on the 5th floor, sobbing, weeping. You can hear her from room 501 because she lost her loved one and she died in that state. So she haunts the Hotel Galvez. There is a music hall within the hotel that is known for things flying off the tables. Mysteriously, there was an employee in that one video I saw where they were in there to check on the table settings because they had a party going on in there. And when she walked in, some of the settings just started flying off the damn tables. I mean, I wouldn't even give a 2-week notice. Maybe like 2-minute notice that I'm done. Time to go home. I need to get on Indeed and look for some jobs. But that's one of those. That's one of those places that, again, it is completely haunted. There's other stories of women in Victorian dresses wandering around the music hall. Because as you know, because I just said it, Galveston was a popular place for all the, I guess they weren't jet setters, all the biplane setters, I don't know. It was popular. It was a port, and many rich people went there. And apparently in this music hall, you will find ghosts of women dressed in Victorian dresses just having a good time. This is not your average hotel, let me tell you, folks. But you look at it from the outside, and it's magnificent. It's now called the Hotel Galvez and Spa. You can have a spa now, but you better have some holy water with you. Now, some of the stories also include Sister Catherine and the kiddos that perished during that hurricane. People are saying that they've actually witnessed children, ghostly children, tied to one another within the halls of the Hotel Galvez. And, you know, if you know the story, fuck, that is scary as hell. But if you don't know the story and you see these ghostly children, fuck, who knows what they look like, but you see these ghostly children running up and down this hotel, it's not going to be a good feeling. You're going to be scared. I couldn't imagine because, you know, in my head, all I picture is the Ghostbusters trying to catch Slimer. That's what I picture in my head. I couldn't imagine what it would look like to be in the presence of an actual disembodied spirit while I'm vacationing in Galveston. That's, I wouldn't be returning to that hotel again. Don't even ask me for a survey. The other thing is that the hotel itself was actually named after Bernardo de Galvez, who apparently haunts the hotel now. In that one video I saw, there was actually another hotel employee. There is a painting of Mr. de Galvez at the end of a hallway, and she swears that when she walked by, the face of the painting turned to watch her walk by. Isn't that crazy? And people actually feel like the painting itself is following them as they walk by. They get that feeling, you know, those goosebumps, like he's actually watching. That's crazy. That's scary. The very last one that they have for Hotel Galvez is the Crying Woman. Now, some people say that this is Audra, who is the woman that haunts the stall number 3 in a woman's bathroom next to the spa. Now, could you imagine me in there at 3 o'clock in the morning with a camera in the women's stall number 3, trying to capture the wailing sounds of a ghost in mourning? That's just crazy. That could get me arrested, but I'm just saying. Hopefully no one needs to hit the shitter while I'm in there, to be honest. And of course they're saying that it was one of the places that Audra would actually hang out at, and probably even spot it in there mourning for her fiance before she committed suicide. This is what Galveston has to offer, to be honest. This is what you're in for. There's a lot of great things down there. Lots of hotels. Of course, you got the cruise ships that leave from there and head down to Mexico and other places, which, when you think about it, who the flying fuck would want to leave on a cruise ship from anywhere? Like, what are you taking with you when you leave the port of Galveston? Didn't even think about that until now. Scary stuff. Hopefully, when I'm there next week, I can catch something. Maybe I'll catch a video of some shadow figure. Hell, maybe the room might be haunted. I might have to take one of those, I've got one of those motion sensor cameras with night vision. Maybe I'll take one of those to see what happens. Because there's nothing scarier than having one of those videos and either someone's watching over you while you're sleeping or the blankets get pulled off of you in the middle of the night. Scary shit. But we'll see what happens next week. Welcome to the Dark Horde podcast, and it seems like I skipped a week. You know, I've been pretty sick the last maybe 10 days, week and a half or so. I don't know what it is. It just will not go away. Could this be, a little bit of the COVID? I don't know. I really, there's not too many places that I go anymore these days, thanks to Wuhan and the coronaviruses. But I just didn't have the energy. The Dark Horde podcast should be every other week. We skipped a week after we had Chris Garcia on here, the psychic from San Antonio, stopping by and chatting with us for a little bit. But we need to get back on it. We got to get back on track and start talking about this paranormal craziness, because there's quite a few of it here. One thing that I want to mention is that on the Tempest Universe podcast, there is actually a contest that I started. Now, I know that there's some people who don't cross that line between UFOs and the paranormal, but there's other people who are all in it. As a matter of fact, most of the psychics that I've talked to for the podcast, or, just in passing, most of them believe in UFOs. A lot of them say they contact them on a regular basis. But notwithstanding that fact, there is a contest that's in the description right now, and it is to win a copy of the recently published book by Professor Avi Loeb, the book entitled Extraterrestrial, the first sign. Oh, God, I'm fucking this up. I told you I don't feel well. Let me start this over. 1, 2, 3. Extraterrestrial, the first sign of intelligent life beyond Earth. And I've got 2 copies. All you got to do is go to the link, register for the sweepstakes, and if you feel froggy and you want more entries in order to give you a better opportunity to winning, there's social action you can take. And by social action, I'm not saying go out and save a lost puppy. What I'm saying is you can go on there, you can subscribe, you can retweet, you can follow the podcast on many different of the avenues that are on there and earn extra points. The best thing is some of those things you can repeat every other day or every day and continue to earn points until the drawing, which will be on February 28th at midnight. There's actually 3 copies. 2 copies are going out in the contest. The third copy, I'm taking that for myself. I'm going to read through it. Then I'm going to pack that baby up with a bunch of stuff. A lot of, podcast merchandise. And that will be in a second contest for one lucky winner to get that delivered to them And it's got to be a lot of stuff in there. Maybe even some like local San Antonio stuff, if you will. Maybe a jar of chili. I don't know. Something like that. Some cowboy boots. Nice big ass belt buckle. That'll probably add like about 10 pounds to the box. Who knows? We'll see what it is. But we'll unveil that in March, along with the tinfoil hat contest that's coming as part of the Tempest universe. In the meantime, we've got some stories here. I was kind of shocked and amazed of some of the craziness that's going on in the paranormal world, around the world in general. I did come across a story from, those stories that talk about all these different, actors and musicians and those guys who have been having all these paranormal and UFO experiences. It seems to be really, really prevalent. But we'll get into that in another episode, because it seems like we just need them all together so we can figure this out. Because the latest one was Post Malone and his experiences in the paranormal, along with UFOs as well. I mean, it's getting nuts. I don't know if coronavirus or COVID-19 has anything to do with this. It may be possible. Who knows? We're going to get started with the first track. And then after that, we're going to head down to South Carolina, because, geez Louise, what the hell is going on over there?
I've been wasting my time. I don't know why I can't get you out my mind. And if I find a way to get it, when I do it, I can live it and forget it. Cause I hate how much I love you, or I hate how you just put me in my feelings. I just wish you understood the gravity, but you got low sinners. I guess it's better just to live it and forget it than to live it and remember. I've been wasting my time. I don't know why I can't get you out my mind. Yeah, now I'm so lost, where do I go? I was in the chase, caught a flat on road. It was all love, X no O. I was feeling rich, but we turned out broke. North Pole, life so cold. Lukewarm love, should've took it to the stove. You were bad news, all kind, no pro. We grew apart fast. I guess we was reaping what we sowed in. I guess we was unequally yielding. Guess if we was putting on the shoulder, guess we should've tried to take it slow then. Guess I let my feelings take control. Guess I let my demon take the wheel. Used to think that we be growing older. Now I can't believe that it was real. It was back in late December when I did it. I just wish I could forget it. Cause I hate how much I love it, oh I hate how I just love to catch a feeling. Yeah. And you told me that you understood the gravity, but now I know you didn't. I guess it's better just to live it and forget it than to live it and remember.
Dead man walking.
It turns out that there's a group of folks that were out having a good time, right? This is the way it always starts. And this is actually how most horror movies starts, right? The people are out there having a good time, and they start getting curious about things. There was a group of folks riding four-wheelers out in South Carolina, and out, Orangeburg County. a.k.a. Norway, South Carolina. Now, from what I saw, the census for this town back in 2010, which was like 11 years ago, was only a little bit, 367, 380 people altogether. So there should be no surprise when you come across an empty house. And more than likely, this group that was riding around in four-wheelers, they might have come to this house quite a few times. But this time, it was a little different. Madison Childers was one of those individuals riding on the four-wheelers that happened to go into this house in Norway, South Carolina. And, they go in there, as I'm sure young folk do. Now, I know this kid here is not, a youngin' because the name's in the damn article. Because I'm sure no parent would want their kid's name in the article. And I don't even think you can, to be honest, due to the age. But so apparently, Madison's of age. And Madison and the four-wheeler gang going up and down Norway decided to go into this house, which, the article says it was known to be a haunted house, but probably is now after what they found. The group found a decomposed body inside of a freezer and were shocked and amazed. Now, it's one thing to go into the house, that's abandoned and stuff like that, but, make yourself at home, why don't you? Why not go in and start opening everything you can find? And that's what they did. And they came across the freezer, and there was the body, and it was just decomposing in the worst possible way. According to Madison, it was very scary. You couldn't tell it was a person, but I think it had been there for months. There were maggots everywhere. That is just horrific. Could you imagine just walking into anything and finding a decomposed body? And the smell of it must have been horrific, to be honest. Like, I couldn't tell you. I couldn't even imagine what that would be like. And there was there was a group of people. So one of the other witnesses says, as soon as the seal broke loose, it was just horrifying to smell. It's something you won't forget. Well, for fuck's sake, I bet you those guys are not going to be going in to any more haunted or empty abandoned houses or buildings and opening the shit that's in there. I mean, completely silly, right? Some of that shit is dangerous. Some of those houses are barely standing up, barely erect. But it's a fun thing to do, right? It's scary. Why not have a good old time? Well, look at you. You probably just solved a murder. Or maybe you solved the reason why the place is abandoned. Because the owner's stuck in the freezer. Like, a lot of these stories, you can't make this stuff up. Could you imagine? I mean, I couldn't even... Well, first of all, you wouldn't find me in there to begin with. Let's be honest about that. I would not be caught dead or alive inside of a freezer of an abandoned house. Unless somebody put me in there, then for fuck's sake, the jig is up. But it's crazy. Completely crazy that this happened. Norway, your town's not even big enough to have shit like this happen. I mean, someone should have known that somebody was missing. I mean, you barely got 400 people as of 11 years ago. We now have 399. Where's that one person? Small town issues. The struggle is real. There's more to this article because apparently the local sheriff really doesn't have a lead in this investigation. They're investigating it to find out what the heck's going on. But something else happened because after they found the body, after this group of youngsters went in on their four-wheelers, having a good time, they found the body, probably upchucked quite a lot. 2 days later, the house was burned to the ground. Somebody trying to hide the evidence? Come on, coppers. What the hell's going on in Norway? Literally, we just found a reason not to move there. It sounds dangerous. So right now they're investigating both of the incidents. Like if they're not, I don't even say why they got here both incidents. Like they're not even related. I mean, the house abandoned and all accidentally just combusted into flames. So it's a separate incident. This is nuts. Completely nuts. Not the kind of town that I would want to live in. Thank you very much, South Carolina. There's more to the story you can read, and maybe we'll get an update. Maybe eventually the Sheriff's Department in Orangeburg County will give the rest of the world an update as to who they found in the freezer and who the hell set the fire. Because I guarantee you, whoever set the fire, probably the one who stuck the body in the freezer to begin with. Crazy. For sure, that place is haunted now. No fucks are given. That is absolutely true. Check out the description. More news to come, I'm sure.
When you're lost, take your trust. That's me. That's so sick. I'm a fraud, call me a liar. A true psycho. Woo. I'm a fraud, call me a liar. A true psychopath, don't love me. When you're lost, take your trust. Yeah, that's me. Oh, that's me, that's me, that's me. 'Cause I'm a fraud. Call me a liar. A true psychopath. Ooh,
Yeah, the funny thing is, I said initially Well, excuse me. I said initially at the start of the podcast that I've been sick for like about 10 days, but actually it's been almost like 3 weeks actually, because I was having some crazy paranormal-like experiences. And then all of a sudden, all of this lack of energy. Someone even said something about a succubus. It's really don't know too much about succubuses, to be honest, or succubi. But scary shit, really. Could it be that that's what's happening right now? I won't know, I guess, until I find out. Have you ever visited one of the places that's known as being one of the scariest places in your damn state? And really, why would you go there? Especially if not what you do. Like, I can understand if a ghost hunter or a paranormal investigator, got his old equipment together, got the gang together, they got into their vans, and they headed to the most haunted place in their city, in their state, on their side of the country. Who knows? But when a regular old Joe decides, hey, I've got nothing better to do, why don't we just grab some brewskis and go to the most haunted cemetery in our town? Something's bound to happen, right? I can't imagine that it's known as the most haunted cemetery in your city for no damn reason. Tyler K, and I'm saying K because his name is crazy. Tyler K, 26-year-old, decided he would pay a visit to the Pine Hill Cemetery in Hollis, New Hampshire. New Hampshire, if you're from the U.S. But I like using those UK pronunciations, so New Hampshire. The burial ground is also known as the Blood Cemetery. I mean, if that's not a clue, what is? The reason it's called the Blood Cemetery is because there's a family there whose last name is Blood. I mean, that's your sign right there. That's your first sign. Like if there's a whole damn family there and they named the family burial site, they named the entire family cemetery after the place. And then it's one of those names where it's like, oh, like the vampires or the wicked witches. I mean, it's not the fairies or the ponies. No, it's the Blood family. Abel Blood apparently is rumored to have murdered. He was murdered, but he had occult connections. The issue with the Pine Hill Cemetery is that people believe that it is haunted by the Blood family. I'm all congested. I sound all crazy. But Tyler K decided, hey, I'm going to go over there and, check it out. I'm going to take my ex Bud with me. And we are going to do some investigation. Let's prove whether or not this place is really haunted. He says when he arrived with his friend, it was close to midnight. Again, strike number 2. That is strike number 2 for you. He arrived with his friend at the cemetery, and it wasn't long before they got there that they realized why the place has a reputation of being haunted. He says, and I quote here, some spots were cold, some were warm. It was strange. I believe a lot of it was my adrenaline, but it is possible I was feeling the presence of a spirit. He says, I noticed a figure at one point when I turned around. It moved quickly, but it scared me. And then does he leave that? No. Here comes strike number 3. He doesn't leave. He doesn't say, hey, buddy, old pal, why don't we go find a 24-hour McDonald's and just stuff our faces and just relive that we just conquered this cemetery? That's not what he does. What he does is he turns around to his friend and he says, hey, why don't you take a picture before we leave? When they get home, they realize that they captured a figure walking among the tombstones. So that figure that he saw just out of the corner of his eye, accidentally, that spooked him, showed up on the pictures. So when they got home, they took a look at the pictures and they were like, wow, there is a body, a ghost, a spirit, a boogeyman in between these tombstones, which if you look at the image for this episode, that is the picture that was taken by Mr. K and his buddy hanging out at the Pine Hill Cemetery. That's scary as shit, right? Because it's one thing if you just caught the picture, whatever, you go back, but he had the feeling. He felt like something was there. He saw it out of the corner of his eye, and he felt like it scurried away. That is just bananas. To really add insult to injury, the place where this apparition is, it's by the headstone of Abel Blood. There you go. Now, it's not just Abel Blood is there. Also, Elizabeth Blood is there. And some other family members. That is crazy. Tyler K believes that the ghost in the picture is actually Elizabeth Blood because it appears to look like a woman, shaped in the shape of a woman. And she's actually standing behind her own headstone. That is completely nuts. When you have these connections to the occult and you have the last name like Blood, that is scary as hell. There's a little more to this particular story. You should check it out. You guys, out there in New Hampshire, what is going on? What is it? I wonder why they don't have like 24-hour surveillance here, because being one of the most haunted places in New Hampshire, there's got to be cameras on that place. Well, there's other families, but you can put it up for security reasons, To hell with that. And, I would love to have one of these places that's known to be super haunted to just have 24-hour surveillance so that you can just log in. You don't have to go there. Could you imagine you bring something home with you from one of these places? That's a bad time for everyone in your homestead. But it would be great if you found one of these haunted places, put up a bunch of cameras, let them run 24 hours, and let people get on from the internet just to watch. Ghost hunt coronavirus style. It's a good idea. Somebody go ahead and run with it.
Never
early on the podcast, we had a few stories which had to do with haunted property. You know, these places where you know it's haunted and it becomes part of the I don't know, the ambiance of living in the area that everyone knows is one place. And people buy these haunted places where people report having experiences and turn them into like little tourist, you know, traps. Part of the ghost tour or something like that, where they let people come in buses and just take a tour in the hopes of getting touched, if you know what I mean. Apparently in Hong Kong, things are a little different. You know, people are not turning these haunted places into tourist traps because it's so damn crowded. Yeah, no. That's not what's happening in Hong Kong. What's happening there is it's so freaking expensive. And the only way you can catch a break, besides being, you know, in the same area of the world, you know, pretty close to breathing or spit distance from Wuhan. Well, it's not that close, but I'm just saying. They're much closer than us. But housing is horrid. It's kind of like living in New York, you know. You pay like $1 million for a closet that has a sink in it that doubles as a toilet. And you have, 200 square feet. That's your $1 million pad in New York City. And Hong Kong is just as bad. We see it in the movies all the time, right? Hong Kong is just crowded as hell. But if you happen to die or happen to find a place where someone died, that property value is going to depreciate. Because even if you are not buying the place where the person died or a family member died or something like that, the properties or the apartments around you will also drop in value. And you get to buy it up. Now, these prices are freaking ridiculous. I'm going to tell you this right now. So if your property has been stigmatized by murder or suicide, you could get it for about 30% cheaper than the normal rate. These agents are making a killing, literally. Here's an example of the kind of deals you can get in Hong Kong if you don't mind a little haunting. 612 square feet in Elizabeth House, and that's part of the Causeway Bay, in May of last year. And again, a lot of this has to do with COVID, I'm sure. But it sold for 8.9 million Hong Kong dollars. 22% below market. For fuck's sake, who's going to... You realize it's down 22%. The price is in the millions. And it's down not because the area is messed up, not because, you know, real estate is jacked up. No, it's down because somebody freaking died there. Down in the millions. That should really, you should measure the level of haunting you're going to get on the Hong Kong dollar value. If it goes on that much, you may need to look somewhere else. Go into a province somewhere. Get in the train. Take the train or something. I don't know. Get yourself a motorcycle. Because you literally are you going to pay 8.9 million Hong Kong dollars just to get haunted? Probably possessed. And you'll need to be exorcised, I'm sure. That's what's going on in Hong Kong right now. This particular place that was purchased for the 22% below the value, the actual death did not happen there. No one died there. On the same floor, someone did. There was an unsolved murder that was dating back to 1984, impacting the price of those units in 2020. Somebody needs to solve that shit already. Let's get this. I mean, fuck, for the price that these things are selling, I would make up a solved case just to make sure I don't lose 23% of the sale price. That is just bananas. There's another area in Hong Kong called City 1. In City 1, in the Sha Tin area, there was a flat, 451 square feet. Another one next to it was haunted. Sold for 6.38 million Hong Kong dollars, 20% below the norm for the area, where people don't die. Only because there was another unit in that apartment complex, that building, where somebody died. Now, here's the funny thing is, if you really want to deal in Hong Kong, and you don't mind a little ghost or haunting, a little bit of the possession, City 1 apparently has a very high prevalence of homes that are tainted with unnatural deaths. Simply because of the amount of murders that happens in City 1. So the rents are low and the prices are good too. You just gotta, say a lot of Hail Marys and cover yourself in the light of God, because you're bound to be probed by this haunting sooner or later. That's some scary stuff, right? To be able to call out an entire city based on the amount of murders and the fact that it's so bad that certain apartments lose value because of unsolved murders or dead people. Crazy. And you're welcome, because I know you've got several $1 million sitting around that you're dying to get rid of. Try not to die, but go ahead over to Hong Kong and get your groove on. You're going to pick up a nice looking pad for pennies on the dollar. But you might have to have the place cleansed. Have somebody go with some sage at least once a week to get the place cleaned out, because for Pete's sake, that's a lot of money to spend. And knowing that you have the potential to be haunted and disturbed every night from midnight to 3. Just completely nuts. Feel like I'm hanging from a thread here. This is the last one for tonight, and let's see if we can get through it. Bigfoot hunters are begging for a Bigfoot. See what I mean? It's almost time to check out. For Bigfoot to be left alone after Oklahoma suggests there should be a Bigfoot hunt. Now, we had this story as part of the Dark Horde network. I don't even remember if it was Dark Horde or if it was a Tempest Universe. But Oklahoma State Republican Justin Humphrey, he filed a measure, it was almost 2 weeks ago, basically saying that there should be an annual Bigfoot hunt because the creature's popular and elusive. Really, should we do that just for like maybe have an alien hunt? Or let's go out and hunt Nessie. Just give everybody torpedoes and let them go to town with it. So he says, listen, this is really about bringing tourism to the fact that Bigfoot is popular in Oklahoma and Arkansas. And in that state line, in between the two states, it's really popular. Shit, we can make a lot of money. He says he wants to put up a $25,000 bounty for the first one that nabs Sasquatch alive. Can you imagine that? 25 G's. I will shoot the first hairy person I find. Probably just like in the knees, though, because they got to be alive. But yeah, that's what's going on. So people who love Bigfoot, they're scared. They're upset about it. They want him to stop trying to get people to kill Bigfoot. This is up there with the folks that are trying to, hunt unicorns and fairies. It's all in the same boat. Humphrey says, I can promise I'm going to be one of the first ones to join the hunt. And he says, I'll guarantee you we'll have fun. And that's what it's all about after we put one in between the eyes of Bigfoot. I don't know, he didn't say that, but they're going to take it too far. Let's be honest. It's going to get out of control, and people are going to be out there during hunting season of Bigfoot trying to kill him, and someone's bound to get, some hairy fool is bound to get shot. And then there's the people who have the Bigfoot outfit sitting in their closet from, a few years back when they did the hoax. And they're going to want to take it out, brush it up real nice, put a couple of, hairpins in it, get the lipstick on, and go out there and try to challenge the notion that you can hunt Bigfoot. I could see someone crazy enough to do that kind of stunt out there in Oklahoma, Arkansas. Crazy. It turns out there was a New York-based Bigfoot enthusiast who said, hey, he goes by the name of Robusto. He says, no. You Bigfoot should be protected. Now, mind you, no one has ever captured a Bigfoot. We've seen pictures of hairy-ass apes. There's a bunch of theories of where he comes from, where he goes. But to date, 2021, there is no definitive evidence that Bigfoot exists. Because every time you find a footprint, you find someone that has stilts with big-ass feet at the bottom that they go around putting up fake footprints all over the place. But apparently Robusto, when he was being interviewed by the Post, said that these creatures should be preserved in their natural environment. And kind of new species like a Bigfoot even needs the protection of some kind of federal law. For real? Really? We're going to take it to the feds now to protect Bigfoot? Really, how do you describe Bigfoot? What genus is he? I mean, how do you categorize him as a species anyway? You don't even know what the fuck he is. Apparently, Robusto called the idea just a gimmick and pointed out that in his hometown of Whitehall, that Bigfoot, capital of the Northeast, they passed a law there, actually, back in the early 2000s, establishing the area as a protective habitat for Sasquatch, banning the willful harming of the creature. Apparently, they haven't seen the reported size of Bigfoot. You know, what is it, like 10 foot tall? Weighs like 10,000 pounds? I mean, come on, really? Who's going to harm Bigfoot unless they're carrying a weapon? And even then, something that big, can you really even shoot it one time? No, you've got to unload on it. But let's be honest, it's either them or us. You can't let Bigfoot just run around all willy-nilly, challenging humanity. No, we gotta take that sucker down. Anyway, so if you go to Whitehall, all bets are off. You're not hunting Bigfoot. You're not looking at him dirty. You're not trying to put a swab in his ass. No, it's not going to happen in Whitehall. You can forget about it. You leave Bigfoot alone. The story continues on cryptids, by the way, because then they talk about that law in Whitehall was actually modeled after another law, keeping another cryptid protected, Lake Champlain's champ. Yeah, apparently in Washington, in Skamania County, they have a law that protects good old champ, the aquatic, whatever the fuck he is. This is crazy. Like, who has the one for the chupacabra? That's what I want to know. We need to protect the chupacabra too. Why? What is this? What's going on? We have racism among cryptids because nobody's protecting the chupacabra. I mean, he's sucking goats for a reason. Goats could be carrying all kinds of diseases. I'm just saying. In the year of, actually 2020, 104 Bigfoot sightings occurred in Oklahoma, 113 in New York. Listen, I don't think that's enough to start a law, to be honest. We need to get into the thousands. You give me a solid year where there's 1,000 Bigfoot sightings, then you can pass a law, because you're bound to catch one of those fools. But 113, come on, that could have been your cousin Earl, dressed up in his Bigfoot costume again. And he got so much joy of it the first time, he did it another 112 times. I'm just saying. This whole cryptid thing is pretty weird to me. But if you are yay or nay, either hunt Bigfoot or not, let me know. Do you think the law should pass in Oklahoma to have a Bigfoot hunting season? And by the way, in Whitehall, in New York, if you accidentally kill Bigfoot or you harm him, you don't get a fine. What's the law good for then? Yeah, so you could walk up to Bigfoot, give him the COVID test in the rear, smack him in the neck, stab him a few times, and if he's hurt, it's okay. You broke the law, but nothing's going to happen to you because he's a cryptid. He's not a real creature. I'm just saying. Maybe that's why. But in any case, if you feel like there should be a law protecting cryptids, let me know. Should Bigfoot be protected? Should the chupacabra be protected? Should the Mothman be protected? Come on. Somebody's got to protect that guy too. I'm just saying. I mean, him flying around could be a terrorist act. 26 episodes, and they've been a little spotty here and there. But before I get started, the first thing I want to say is that next Saturday at 10 p.m. Central, we will have the trifecta of shows for the Dark Horde. It will be on YouTube, broadcasted live, and then later on, it will be placed on mobile podcast format. But it will be the three psychics we've heard on the show before: Addie, Charlotte, and Chris. And they're going to sit on there and bring you some skills on Halloween night. So if you're scared about your future or not ready to hear about it, you don't want to join us for the next episode. But if you're curious, or if you're trying to reach someone, or you need maybe a little bit of a tarot card insight, next week is the week for you. Now, I know you'll have a house full of kids jumping up and down. Hell, maybe your friend will be, or your cousin, or even your mom and dad. Who knows? Someone's going to get into the candy and get a little crazy. Now, it is a 2020 COVID-19 year, so maybe there won't be too much candy to go around, but fuck, go get your own. You ain't got to wait for people to bring you candy. Just get your own. Have a sugar high. And join us on YouTube. If you look at the description before we even get started today, you can get on YouTube and subscribe, put a little bell notification on and all that good stuff. So that way you know. There's even an option to set a reminder so that the moment it goes live, you'll know about it. So go ahead and set that up. And then if you want to know, if you have questions, there will be a link supplied during the live show where you can call in via your mobile phone, any computer, any tablet. All it's going to ask you is for your name. Give a fake name. No fucks are given. It's okay. You don't even have to show your face, but you will show up as a little avatar on the YouTube, so you can ask your questions. But if you're kind of scary and you're not someone who's used to doing things like that, you can also just simply type your question to the psychics on the live chat. Just as simple as that. The three of them are hilarious, friendly, and they've got skills that you want to experience for yourself. Today I came across an article. Actually, I came across quite a few. We're getting close to Halloween, and there's a lot of ghost story articles out there. As a matter of fact, the Huffington Post had one that had 10 stories. Then I saw one for 20 stories, and the list just keeps going. Today we have 3. Now, the one thing I'm not very good at is telling scary stories because I'm kind of dramatic. Like, I want to go straight for the punchline every time. So I tend to rush the story. And so there's not a good delivery, let me just say that, and not very dramatic. But we got 3 stories. They're kind of short, but still, it gives you a little something to think about. Because I'm sure that wherever you are, there are stories just like this. Stories that were told by your parents or your grandparents, your uncles. Stuff that even some that might be familiar that you heard as a kid, and you went ahead and shared it with your children. But that's what we got today. So let's get started with a little tune like this one. The great thing about these stories is that they are being told by folks who experience them firsthand, or they live in the area where the incident occurred. So that makes them all the more interesting. Now, I wouldn't say that they're scary, but for some people, they can be. You know, these are things that might be commonplace and are told a lot. If you look at the description for the episode, you see the link to the article and the stories and the perspective that's being shared. The first one comes from Brad Culp. Brad Culp was a student at Miami University in Oxford, Ohio. How does that work? I don't know. I'd much rather be at the actual Miami University in Florida. There was a rumor that the town that was at one point known as the most haunted place in America, that there's some scary business going on. There was one story in particular. And this story happened on Oxford-Milford Road. By the way, Bugs, the UFO hunter, is behind me right now, snoring away. If there's anything scary in my life right now, it would be Bugs at night. But he's easy to locate, that's for sure. It turns out that there was an article because Culp was part of the on-campus magazine, and he published some stories regarding some local phantoms that were fascinating. One of them in particular kind of stood out in his mind, and he wanted to find out about it. The story happened a few decades before, around the 1940s, and there was a young man that was courting a young lady in a rural part of town. Of course, you know, back in the day, you know, parents were strict. They didn't give no fucks about it. You weren't going to court someone that their parents did not approve of. This was the case for this young man and this young lady. Though they were in love, the young woman's parents did not approve of it. So what they would do is, in the middle of the dark, they'd find ways to meet. As soon as the parents went to bed, the young lady would sneak out of the farm and head over to her parents' car. She would flash the headlights 3 times. And by the third flash, her suitor would arrive on his motorcycle. That's how they met at night. In the cover of darkness, away from the parents, they would sneak away. And off they would go to spend time together. Until one night, after receiving the flashes, the young man took a right turn to the house a little too sharply. The turn was so sharp. The motorcycle went one way, the young man's body flew in another, and he suffered severe injuries. Injuries that he never survived. Rumors are that along that road, along Oxford-Milford Road, his spirit, his ghost, his essence still haunts the road. Hearing about this, as part of his research for the college magazine, Brad Culp decided he wanted to know more. Culp and his girlfriend at the time decided they wanted to go one dark night, to that road to verify the story. His girlfriend at the time was worried, and she was really freaked out because apparently she believes in things like this, the paranormal, ghosts, spirits, hauntings. She's a true believer. Him, not so much. Culp was not entirely convinced, but he did want to try it. So on that night, they decided to drive out to Oxford Milford Road. And the story is that if you could drive up to the road and you flash your headlights 3 times, something will happen. Culp says, no joke, we flashed the lights 3 times. And in the distance, one single light turned on. He says a single light appeared about 3/4 of a mile down the road. And the quote is, you saw it start to come, going pretty slow. It kept coming and coming. My wife was freaking out. Girlfriend at the time. It was coming closer and closer. He says it seemed like a collision was imminent. So Culp turned on his car lights. He expected to see a kid on a bike, or someone bailing from a bike, or a prank that they were playing on him. But there was nothing. The light was gone. Him and his girlfriend at the time, currently his wife, they got out of the car and walked around. They figure something had to have been there because they saw it. It was in front of them. He says to this day, they talk about it as something they couldn't explain. And if you get them, or on a campfire at night in the woods somewhere, they will tell you that the story is real. It really happened. But Culp and his wife invite you to Oxford, Ohio, and get on Oxford Milford Road at night and test it for yourself. Find out firsthand if there was a ghost there. If the spirit of that young man is still there waiting for his beloved to signal that he can pick her up. It is one crazy story, but you hear things like this all the time. That the bond between the two was so strong that he's still there waiting. The story itself doesn't really talk about what happened to the girlfriend that was kept by the parents from openly being in a relationship with this young man, but I could imagine that she was heartbroken that things came to an end like this. It's a pretty sad story, but a good ghost story nonetheless. So if you guys are in Ohio and have actually visited this road or live in that town, let me know if you've ever gone out there and flash your lights. especially if somebody flashed back. There is an amazing thing that you see when you're out, like in the mountains somewhere, and especially if you live like those ski towns where you're in the mountains and you get that white blanket of fresh snow. It's amazing to see the nature of it. Even from a distance, the mountains just would look so majestic. But they're treacherous, right? Nature has a way of making the most beautiful, amazing sights bring you to reality, and that is that you're merely human. And even in beautiful places, there are some really scary and things that you are not able to overcome, no matter how hard you try. This next story was actually told by someone who used to be the owner and manager of Flathead Lake Lodge. The lodge was out in Montana. And there are things that happen that are really strange and you can't explain. Some of them are tied to just people being evil. Or is it maybe something out of this world? Doug Averill grew up. His parents had 8 boys, so you can imagine all the craziness that went around in Flathead Lake Lodge. How things got crazy and how well people got to know the Averill boys. Doug says they rode around as a gang of little cowboys. Literally, they would get on horses. In the summer of 1960, the boys were out on this humongous property that the family owned. And they came across a horrific scene. There were 3 cows dead, and they were neatly arranged in a circle. Not a single cow had a wound in it. At least none that were visible. their reproductive organs were removed. No blood, no scars, no wounds. Almost akin to what we hear in stories of cattle mutilation. Avril went ahead to say, Doug went ahead to say that he remembers that around this time in the United States, people were obsessed with aliens. There were many write-ups in the local newspaper regarding ETs and strange things happening with reproductive organs. But that wasn't the strangest thing, because there were a series of really strange events. There was one day where Avril and his friends came across a spear that was laying on their path. There was a note on it. It was a threatening note. He remembers thinking that possibly the things that were happening, especially with the cows, and now the spear, it was people being malicious or had evil intent. After finding the spear, things really started to get a little crazy in the days that followed. First one is that the boys that were together, the brothers, they stopped at a local bar to grab a hamburger. They were actually at their truck and they were pulling horses. They were in a trailer. They were tightly packed together. They went into the bar. And when they came out, they noticed something strange. The horse that was in the middle of the trailer, surrounded by the other horses, but one with very much less opportunity to get out of the trailer as the others, was no longer in the trailer. It was loose. But yet, the other horses were still in the trailer. They couldn't figure out how this horse got out. There was a mystery to them. There were no signs of a struggle, no signs that anyone was trying to open a trailer or anything like that. They had no idea. Because the horse was in the middle. Doug said, we had no idea how this possibly could have happened. That horse unloaded without unloading all the others, he says, would have been impossible. The following day, a new wrangler on the ranch fell off his horse. In a freak accident, the wrangler was severely injured. What was weird to them is that they were all riding all day. But not a single person actually saw the wrangler fall. Nobody knows how it happened. They were all together. But he was on the ground. And his injuries were so severe, he was permanently disabled from that day forward. Doug's mind continued to go to the day where he found the spear. And then the cows before that. Trying to put together how is it that these things are all connected, because they're strange. They're very strange. Finally, one more horrific thing happened. An old cook drove out to meet the brothers. And for some reason, when he arrived at the ranch, he noticed that the tailgate from his truck was missing. Gone. Now, how does this happen? How do you, on a drive, how does your tailgate just disappear? That's a lot of weight. And I would imagine that even on a dirt road, you would hear that some bitch hit the ground as you leave it behind. Strange. The funny thing is that before he left his home, he knew the gate was there. He loaded it up. In fact, he had a trailer that he was also pulling. And what he noticed is that his horse, his favorite horse, Betsy, had fallen out of the truck and been dragged the entire length of the way to meet the Averill boys. The man was heartbroken. It was his favorite horse. Many times, Doug says, he felt that we probably needed to put him down as well, because of how heartbroken he was. Doug says it was so strange how these things happen one after another, all starting with the cattle, the spear, and then they just continue from there on. But recently, at the time that this story was published, he got a call about a drowned bull. A bull that was out. Doing the normal things bulls do, right? On a remote part of the ranch. A neighbor had seen a pack of 16 wolves, and normally wolves don't bother buffalo or bulls. But the fact that there were 16 of them was kind of strange for the area. When they went out to the area to investigate this significant size of a pack of wolves, there in the snow was a bull. No bullet holes, no teeth marks or gashes, just a corpse. What they found strange was that even though the bull was dead, there actually wasn't any type of scavenger animals marks on him either. Nothing around them. No buzzards. But what was missing was the reproductive organs again. Gone. In the middle of the snow, where the bull was, there was one footprint. And that's all there was. Just one. Averill himself thinks that he's dealing with people, malicious people with evil intent, but many ask him if he thought that maybe he was dealing with aliens. He says it's pretty much sure that it's humans, but he'd rather believe that it is aliens because it would be sad to think that a human being would do some of these horrific things. Pretty strange indeed. I honestly, in looking at the story, I thought it was aliens myself. But I guess it would be easier to blame something from outer space than your fellow man.
I could give
This next one is kind of like a familiar theme. We have it here in Texas. The story of the Llorona, but this one didn't originate from Texas. This one is from somewhere else. This story is being told by Drew Tapke. And Drew says, throughout Latin America, there's a lot of variations of the story of La Llorona. Hell, we even had a movie, was it last year or the year before? The wailing woman who is looking for either her lost husband or her lost children. But sometimes both. Why not? The La Parva ski spot in the Chilean Andes. In this story, the woman's name is Lola. And the funny thing is that everyone that lives in that area apparently knows Lola. Everyone remembers her, is familiar with Lola. They recall interacting with her right before she died. If you head to La Parva, you might run into a local restaurant owner that says he dated her at one time. Drew says that the ski patroller that he heard the story from pointed out to the exact hut where the story took place. The story starts at the peak of one ski season. Lola had a young son, and they planned to spend the day on the slopes because it was great. It was wonderful. So why not? The one thing, according to the story, that the Andes are known for is fog. Thick, unrelenting fog. And as the mother and child went up the mountain into the slopes, a fog rose up from the valley. Usually a fog here is preceded by a real storm, not flurries. A real snowstorm. And the two were caught on the mountainside when this storm happened. They tried to make their way down to the mountain from the top, and they lost contact with one another. Lola was desperate. She wanted to find her son in the middle of a snowstorm on the Andes Mountains. She would run and scream and yell and run and scream and yell for her son. Where was he? How could this be happening? The storm was thick. It was blinding. She could not see, and she stumbled down a steep slope. And she slid down across rocks and ledges. A local lift operator who was returning to his cabin in the area came across her body. He feared the worst. He feared the worst that out in the middle of this horrific storm that he'd found a victim. Of course, he checked her out. He inspected to see if there was any life, and there was. She was barely alive. Her body itself was covered in cuts and scrapes And when he picked her up, she whispered her son's name. That's all he could record. That's all she would say. It's her son's name. He carefully pulled her, picked her up, and took her to the cabin that was just up the hill. He cared for the lady, bandaged her up, tried to keep her from bleeding out. He asked her to stay, that he'd be right back, because he needed to get the doctor to help her out, because she was in bad shape. The bandages were just not enough. When the doctor and the lift operator returned back to his hut, through that thick fog and that snow, the bed that he left the lady on was empty. All that was left behind was sheets filled with blood. For days, they searched. The lady, Lola, and her son were never found. Many of the local folks will tell you that when they're on those slopes, when they're out there at La Parva in the Chilean mountains, sometimes you can hear Lola wailing for her son. Whenever they come across the cabin of that lift operator. It's a really sad story, but there's a theme that we hear very much, because we all know how strong a mother's love can be for a child. And at times it can be strong enough to keep them from moving on in passing. These are the three stories that were shared in this article. The link to the article is in the description. You should check them out. And again, if you look for the Huffington Post, there is actually an article with 10 similar stories. 10 ghost stories, because this is the season, right? Don't forget to tune in next week, October 31st, Halloween Day, and get your psychic on. Visit with Charlotte, Addie, and Chris. They might have a message for you from the other side. Hopefully not from Lola, because that would be pretty weird. Or they might have something important that you need to know about your future. But you're not going to know unless you're there. The link for the YouTube channel, again, is in the description. Check it out. And then afterwards, you might just join us on Discord, where we talk about what happened afterwards. We might even talk about you if you can join the discussion. The scariest one ever. I promise you, I've been sitting around researching this stuff for this episode today, and I'm hearing things. I'm hearing things. I feel like someone's watching me. It's not going to be a fun one for me. As a matter of fact, I was sitting here just waiting the last 5 minutes, contemplating if I need to delete this audio once I'm done. I've heard this before. Like, I've heard people who go around places and they take pictures and they take audio and stuff like that, how they feel compelled to, for their own safety, to delete audio that they capture. And I feel like I'm going to have to do this once this podcast is done. It's going to be aired, and then I'm going to delete it. I feel sorry for the folks at the podcast host, Spreaker.com. They're fucked. They're going to be haunted for sure. Don't nobody tell them I did it. This is number 13. I'm glad to be back. It's a little late. It's supposed to happen last Saturday, but life happens. But I said, I got to do it because I still have to make the announcement on this podcast that next Saturday, Chris Garcia will be here live with us Central Standard Time on Spreaker.com at 8 p.m., and that is May 9th. And he is a psychic. Pretty good one, I got to say myself. But, geez, I wonder if he actually saw this coming, the fact that I'm having this particular episode. I don't know. I am expecting to have a lot of technical difficulties, to be honest. I feel like something's going to go awry, but I just don't know. Don't know what's going to happen. If you like the podcast, which just recently made it not only into iTunes, but also into iHeart, and I believe on Spotify itself, share it. Share it is caring. Let your folks know that there's someone that's a little bit not exactly the model of what you would assume is someone that would handle paranormal stories, especially like the one tonight. But they should listen, tune in, and then go into the Discord chat to hang out with the peeps, the folks that you hear about all the damn time on the podcast, whether it be this one or UFO Buster Radio. Right now, I got to give a shout out to Gooter, Greenman, Pucky, Mr. Num Nums, The Norm. Let's see. I'm thinking somebody else is missing here. I was waiting for somebody else to show up, but I guess that didn't happen. Maybe he's a little sleepy. Could be. But I'm glad you guys are here. And I'm glad you guys are ready to listen to this. I'm scared shitless already, and I haven't even started the podcast. I'm telling you, this is going to be one that is going to have to be deleted. I promise you. And as a matter of fact, I want to know from you guys, at the end of the podcast, how many of you were able to listen to the audio clip that's coming? There's an audio clip in here. Hours and hours of audio clips that I went to of exorcisms. And I chose one. I chose one for you guys, the listening audience. And when it spooked me really good. So I got one news article, which is contemporary kind of, regarding the Vatican and the topic of exorcism. One particular person that we're going to talk about. And then we're going to get into the story and then the audio clip. And I really want to know how many people listen to the whole thing. But we'll get to that in just a moment. But as always, what I like to do is kind of like get the mood started and play a little audio clip. Or should I say some music? Because it's going to be balls to the walls today.
Rivers run dry, dust breath in the air. 2 dark days, do you have a tear to spare? Make a promise, the world awaits. It's heavy just breathing through this debate. Come on, start a riot. When they love you the must know it's fake, or even hate. Don't be scared if the weight paralyzes your state at the gate. No, it's a lot to take in. It's designed to know when, don't wait. Don't be scared when the weight paralyzes your state at the gate.
So here's the first story for today. So let's get right into it because I really am interested to see what everyone thinks when the podcast is over and done with, because I might be in a rush to end this bitch real fast. The first article, Vatican's chief exorcist for 30 years claimed to have dealt with the devil 60,000 times, a new book reveals. That is phenomenal in and of itself. Let me tell you, I honestly was just looking for fucking EVPs today, and I guess that wasn't enough. That wasn't good enough for this episode, being at number 13. We're just going to go deep. The Vatican chief exorcist, Father Gabriel Amorth, he actually passed away at the age of 91 in 2016, and he often was asked to help people who were believed to be possessed. We've seen the movies. We've grown up scared shitless because of the movies. But it's something else to come across this in real life. Or, at 60,000 times. He had brass balls, to say the least. But could you imagine the first few times how scary it may have been? I'm telling you, just thinking about it, it's just wild. There's a book that's titled The Devil is Afraid of Me, The Life and Work of the World's Most Famous Exorcist, and is written by Marcello Stanzione. He's a fellow priest who actually worked with the father. while he did his thing, while he exorcised 60,000 people. This report is actually coming from the New York Post, and it's probably more like a gigantic advertising, but it is what it is. It is what it is. The book actually talks about this one exorcism that took place in 1997. Father Amorth believes that in that exorcism, he came face to face with the devil himself. The story goes like this. One morning, there was a young Italian peasant who was brought to the father for consultation in Rome. The young man was accompanied by a priest and another man. The latter of the two was the young man's translator. The possessed man apparently, up until the time of possession, only spoke Italian. But this spirit that took him over spoke English. Now, I'm gonna be honest, man. I'm sure everybody in Italy thinks that the devil speaks English, and there's a whole country full of them. I'm just saying that. I had to interject. Father Amorth began the exorcism in Latin, and when he mentioned Jesus' name, the young man started to yell curses in English. When the exorcist started to recite the prayer and stated, "I command you," the possessed peasant fell silent. But then he began to scream and howl. The demonic possessed peasant began to rock back and forth. He looked straight at the father and said, "Whoever you are, and all your companions who possess this servant of God, I command you, tell me your name and the hour of your damnation." Father Amorth continued to ask the demon to answer. And finally, the answer is, "I am Lucifer." This is but one story out of 60,000 that this particular father from the Vatican came across. Scary. I couldn't even fathom, like, being in that room. Even the guy that was with him, that wrote the book, could you imagine just standing there being a witness to this? Like, Marcello Stanzione has probably seen things that rival the best horror flick. The greatest story of any possession, told by any producer or director. I initially thought, hey, this is a good find. Contemporary, right? Just happened, blah, blah, blah. This guy did 60,000 of them, off them all. By the way, the link is in the description if you want to read the rest. And if you're interested in the book, there's links in there too where you can pick it up. I really thought that this was going to be the best I could do, to be honest. And I was going to move over to, something else. Maybe some ghost stories or campfire stories or something of that effect. But what I found was so much more terrifying. It's bananas. It's completely crazy. because it is a true story of a young lady who was possessed, whose attempts by the family to have an exorcism performed was captured not only on video, but there's also audio. And in fact, you can search the internet and find hours and hours. Of all that time that was recorded, I listened to quite a few. I'm not gonna lie, it was a little crazy, but I picked 5 minutes and 44 seconds. But let's tell you what this story is about. The story is about a young lady by the name of Anneliese Michel, a German young lady. Anneliese was exorcised. Her story is the basis for the film The Exorcism of Emily Rose. If you look at the image that I have here for the podcast for today, that is an image, a picture of Anneliese before and during the exorcism. Like night and day. There were some really dark things happening to her, and it wasn't just over a bit of time, not short time at all. It took some time for this whole thing to evolve into what you're going to hear in a few moments. But before we get there, this is what we're going to do. We're going to play one more song. I know you guys are sitting at the edge of your seats. Then we're going to talk about the story. We're going to go moment by moment and explain what happened to her, to Anneliese. Okay, then I suggest you turn on the lights on, because it's not going to be pretty.
I could
Ladies and gentlemen, let's get started. Here is the story of Annalise Michel. So let's just get into it. In the late 1960s, Annalise displayed some really strange behavior. It was behavior that many were assuming was due to a demonic possession. That possession led to her death. Like I said before, this is the basis of the film, The Exorcism of Emily Rose. The exorcism itself was recorded, and there were over 40 audio experts that are both terrified and amazed and taken back by what was recorded. We have a clip, but let's know about Annalise first. Annalise was born September 21st, 1952. She had 3 sisters. Her family was a strict Catholic family. In many ways, people saw them as they were more of the intense folks, the intense Catholic followers who really skirted some of the more intense parts of the religion. In 1969, Annalise suffered a seizure. Doctors told her family that Annalise suffered from temporal lobe epilepsy, which could cause, among many things, a really long list of side effects, including mood changes, hallucinations, and loss of awareness. Over the next few years, Annalise would suffer more seizures. The odd thing was that scans of her brain never showed any serious symptoms. There was just nothing really there. In the early 1970s, Annalise would start to hear knocking in her bedroom. Her sisters also heard the knocking as well. Annalise would begin to hear evil voices. And over time, she herself would become evil in her behavior. Doctors attempted to place her on an anti-seizure medication, but zero effects. Annalise would often experience convulsions. As the spring of 1976 came on, her seizures got worse. She began to attack her family members, biting and scratching them. And whenever she can get her hands on her sisters, she would beat them. During this ordeal, in the latter half of her possession, she refused to eat. She would often tell her family that the demons would not let her. At times, she would collapse to her knees and rise back up quickly and continue to do this repeatedly, hundreds of times a day. Eventually, she broke her kneecaps in the process. The final exorcism of Annalise was done June 30th, 1976. Annalise herself was too frail, and she needed help from her parents. On one of the tapes, when she speaks for the last time, she addresses the 2 priests that are present and advises them that they need to beg for absolution. She then turns to her family and whispers, "Mother, I'm afraid. On the morning of July 1st, 1976, Annalise dies of malnutrition and dehydration. According to the coroner's report, she weighed a mere 68 pounds.